Well, I think I I was born in Canada, and I painted in oils at that time. I didn't start to paint in watercolor until 1992 down here in Florida. And I've been doing demonstrations for Florida watercolor for over 20 years, maybe longer.
No way.
And everybody has seen me paint. A lot of you have seen me paint. And so I decided that I didn't want to do a lot of painting for this demo, mainly because I thought I would bore you to death. But I am going to do a short demo on painting. I find that over the years, I paint with watercolor more in an oil painting style than I do in a watercolor style. I take the paint directly out of the well, and I very, very, very seldom glaze anything. So I'm going to do a demonstration of how I do that, and painting watercolor like it's oils. And then I decided that I would share with you the evolution of my studio. I've started with a loft, and then I put in a storage room, and then life happened, and I ended up living alone. I lost my husband and partner, and so my home has now become my studio. Every room is taken over, and I'm going to walk you through it, give you all kinds of hints and ideas of why I did things the way I did them, and show you how I actually can take a picture in a window, out a window, or in a still life setup, and 5 minutes later be projecting it in my loft and getting it on paper. So that's what I'm going to do for my demo at Florida Watercolor.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'll be there for sure. And how many students do you think you've had and touched over the years? Is there any idea of a number?
I don't have a number, but I will tell you that I've just finished teaching a series of 6 Zoom classes for Cheap Joes.
Mm-hmm.
And I averaged over 30 students in every one of those classes. I've had as many as 50 people in a Zoom class. When Cheap Joes went from strictly in-person workshops and got their Zoom setup going, they doubled their student base. And most of those students come from California and Hawaii.
Wow.
I've got a young man in Portugal that takes, I've got people from Dubai. It's just amazing. I can't even begin to tell you the number. I just know that right now I'm getting a lot of wonderful people from all over the world in those Cheap Joe's Zoom classes.
That's fantastic. What's the next class you have coming up? Is there one scheduled?
I'm taking 2 months off.
Oh, here we go.
I'm taking 2 months off. It's really not taking it off, but I have next year, I have 3 workshops. I'm going to be in the Villages. I'm going to be in Bonita Springs. I'm going to be somewhere in Central Florida for the Central Florida Watercolor Society. They haven't given me the exact location yet. And I also teach, it's a wonderful historical building here in Sarasota called Villa Serena. And they took the old 100-year-old carriage house and renovated into a state-of-the-art artist studio. And I do all my Zoom classes from there. And I teach Zoom for Villa Serena, and I teach in person as well. And all of the Zoom classes, the 6 Zoom classes that I just finished with Cheap Joes were all hosted and filmed at Villa Serena.
Oh,
I'm going to be doing starting in October through July. I'm going to be doing in person and Zoom for Villa Serena. And starting in January, I'm going to be doing another set of classes for Cheap Joes.
how does the Zoom class work? Your equipment, or do you go somewhere?
I don't use my equipment. It's all brand new equipment. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And it's seamlessly done. And I've got proper microphones. There's two girls that are trained to zoom in on when I want to show something. Like I kind of mingle the paint on the paper. I let a lot of what I do happen on the paper. And they can zoom right in and the students can actually see that.
Nice.
One of the things that was said initially was that there was no interaction. The only way you get that is with in-person classes, but that's not true. Because I'm finding they're talking to each other in the break. I take a 15-minute break. They converse with me a lot by email. I probably get 10 to 12 emails after the class they'll be asking me for color charts that I have, temperature charts. They show me what they've done. They ask me to critique it. So there's a lot of there's a lot of personal interaction and friendships being made over Zoom.
That's fantastic. I didn't know.
Yes.
So,
in fact, the young man from Portugal, one of the girls that he met on a Zoom class went and visited him in Portugal. So there are friendships being formed that are just amazing.
well, I didn't know you were a matchmaker.
No.
Well, now, if some of the people watching wanted to try it out, how do they do that? And tell them a little bit what they need or how that process might work on their end.
I'm sorry, I didn't. They want to know the process of what?
If they sign up for one of your Zoom classes or others, how does it work on their end? They have to have a camera, right?
No, they can do it on their phone, or they can do it on their iPad, or they can do it on their computer. They're sent, like today, they're sent. First of all, they pay their money. And a week before the class, they're sent the image and they're sent the supply list. And then they are sent the Zoom link. And all they do is tap on that Zoom link the day of the class. It goes for 4 hours. And I paint and I stop and I ask them to show me what they're doing. It's been really wonderful. I enjoy it.
So they just hold up their the camera on their phone, or their
Yes, and they hold their painting up. And in the studio where I'm teaching, there are two gigantic 60-inch televisions, and I can see it. I mean, they're just enormous.
That's fantastic.
Student and I see the painting, and everybody else can hear what I'm saying about that individual painting.
Yeah, and they see the paintings too. So they're, as you're talking to them, they get to see.
Oh,
everything.
yes.
Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty cool. And that's Cheap Joe's. They can go to Cheap Joe's if they're interested, right? .com.
I teach and the Cheap Joe's classes that I do are 4 hours long, and you sign up for those through the Cheap Joe's website. And right now, I have just chosen, I'm going to do 6 classes starting in January. I've just chosen the images. I'm going to send them to Edwina, let her choose what she wants. And then it takes me a lot of hours to come up with the instructions on what they need, what paints they need, anything extra they might need. I do not give them the drawing. I give them an image. And they are allowed to take that image. This is the same if you go through the Villa or you go through Cheap Joe's. They get an image. They get a picture of a finished painting, and it may be a little bit different than the image that they're painting that day. It's their job to get that drawing on the paper. Any size they want, it's their choice and their choice of paper. I make it very clear that I will not be finishing the painting in 4 hours.
Okay.
But it's been a really, really rewarding experience. I can't tell you.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people. They're kind of afraid to do a Zoom class. So sounds like they shouldn't be afraid, should they?
No, you know what's happened? There were two things. Well, I already mentioned the fact that there was no interaction. That's not true. But people who said to me, I thought I would hate Zoom. I had made up my mind I was never going to do it. Well, what's happened is a lot of those people have discovered they like it. You get the recording of the class for 30 days through the Villa. That frees them up to watch the recording anytime they want to, dressed or undressed. I have, for instance, 2 women from California, from Sacramento area, both of them, and they don't know each other. That just happened accidentally. I twigged into it. They're both doctors. They work Monday through Friday, and the only time they get to paint is on the weekends. So they don't even attend, and this is happening a lot. Like, what did I have? I had 35 the other day, and 31 attended the class, okay? Because the other 4 just were going to take the recording and work from that.
Wow.
It's quite amazing.
Well, then we should encourage everyone to give it a try. Well, Ann, this was awesome, and thank you. Appreciate it. We'll come back to you again with maybe.
Okay.
Now, don't be afraid to put those questions down there. Any of them that stumps Ann gets an extra prize. Excuse me. I need to get some water, I guess. Okay, next up, though, we have Deborah. She goes by Debbie. And if any of you want to look the bios up, excuse me. If you want to look up the bios of any of the artists here, it's on our website. It's under the convention page under demo artists. It's got a full write-up of a little bit of background about them. And if you want some funny stories about them, I can email them to you. I just make them up, but just let me know. Okay, Debbie, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be doing in September, and just give it all to us.
Okay. Well, I was born in central New York, and when I went to school, I moved to Buffalo, not too far away from Canada, where Ann was, and I got my bachelor's and master's at SUNY at Buffalo, and then proceeded to spend 32 years teaching secondary art in a large suburban district of West Seneca, close to where the Buffalo Bills play. Yeah. And I found it really rewarding. But then after we retired, my husband and we moved to Florida. I didn't start work in watercolor right away. When I taught drawing, painting. I did pastels, acrylics, ceramics, sculpture. I did I was an all-round art teacher. And when I came to Florida, my aunt and my uncle were quite ill. So first was helping my uncle, and then my aunt, who ended up moving from Tampa to being here in Sarasota, so that I could watch over her. It was a lot easier than driving an hour up to Tampa. At any rate, I started painting because I would go to the shows at Art Center Manatee of the Suncoast Watercolor Society. And they would have also national, international shows. And I was just going to look at the work, knowing that I really didn't have that much time because I was spending a lot of time doing things for my relatives. But then, I would go to Keaton's. I would see Anne demonstrating. I went to a couple of her actual workshops, and I learned a lot. I learned about her mingling of color, and slowly I started building up how she did a background with a number of colors. And the big move for me, though, was the week that Mary White came to Art Center Manatee, and her veterans, her 20 or 30 veterans paintings that she had, was a show that was there, and it was in conjunction, I believe, with the Suncoast. And I was a new person to Suncoast back then in 2016. That was my first year, and I took her workshop that week, and it was just wonderful. It was 8:30 to 4, and after the first day, she said to us, "And if you come at 8, I'll start at 8." And sure enough, we were all there at 8, and we did still life, and we did, and I really wanted to know how to do people, because I had a few grandchildren. I have 6 now, so I have many grandchildren if I choose to paint them. And I wanted to get into her head on how she actually did all of that. But the great thing was that even when we would just have a lunch break or something, that's when she would come and sit with us and talk about how you would sell your work, or how you would move into doing teaching or something beyond just the classroom thing. So she was one of my big mentors in that respect. I really love John Salmonen, and a lot of what I'm presenting today has kind of a little bit of a lean toward him. And then I also took through Art Center Manatee a big workshop with Dylan Pierce, who did a tremendous amount of time talking about color blending, and does color where she mingles. He actually takes a couple of colors and puts like dots next to each other and allows them to mingle that way. And he spent a tremendous amount of time talking about the paper, the wetness of the paper, when you can apply paint to the paper, a wet on wet, and wet on dry, and dry on dry. And it really sunk in, because he did such a great job, and how many blending. Now, I don't think I would spend as many times doing layers as he does, but I mean, the results were beautiful. Again, he was doing people. Okay, so that leads me to today. Well, I spend a lot of time looking for paintings that are for work that says something. I'm always taking photographs and taking them in many different angles, so I could come up with what it is that I really think, sends that painting into something I really want to look at. And thank you, Ron. And so these are the things I really want to talk about. I'm really interested in depth, so I want to talk about perspective. I know perspective's tough for some people. They think, oh, wow, I can't really do the perspective. But I've come up with a few ways of actually putting perspective into work with a basic grid system that works for me. Focal point, vanishing point. Focal point, the interest of where it is you're trying to actually have people zone in on. Vanishing point is in paintings. However, you don't necessarily see the vanishing point to the very end where it becomes the dot. It's usually in some way cut off by a wall or whatever. The other big things I want to talk about are foreground. The big important part of your focal point in your painting might be in your foreground, might be in your middle ground, or it might be the background. I have taken 8 paintings that I've done over the years from the very first time I started, and I've kind of detailed for you how I actually came up with and how I advanced from a pretty basic painting to a much more involved painting. And I'm, how I actually was able to do that. Light and shadow, light is always big, shadow is always big, and reflections on the floor, on the mirrors, on the walls. So those are the things I want to talk about. All right, now let's go to my first painting. Okay, what you're looking at are 3 particular pictures. In the lower corner is the actual photograph of my grandson in his kitchen, the light streaming through the hallway down toward him. And this was one of the first paintings I did. And the top schematic shows actually where that perspective or that sense of depth really was. The lines are drawn back. The vanishing point actually goes right off the paper. And it is the floor is ended by the fact that there's a back wall. In the painting itself, I actually was taking it. I just about finished this painting when I was with Mary White, and she was talking to me. We were having a discussion about the corner of the wall itself and whether or not that wall should have much color. And it's a little faded out here, but it's a lot of a tan color. And she said, no, I don't think so. And I was using her techniques for blocking in the background. That was my first painting that I really started to do some perspective. And basic, but you did get the depth. Now, speaking of foreground, middle ground, and background, where are we? Well, the foreground is the floor. The middle ground is my grandson, and the background's kind of a basic blur going back. Okay, next slide. That one is the one that's behind me, and it has 2 things going for it. It has the big interest I felt was right in the background. It was that samurai, which was the name of this painting. And then you'd have all the reflections and color on the floor, leading back, way back to where the samurai is. That were the red lines. And then, of course, the second thing you have is you have the people. They're also in a perspective type of view where you're going from large to smaller, and it leads your eye back till you get to the samurai itself. The back is cast light, lots of shadow. The front is in extreme light so that you get that effect and your eye is led right to the background. So now we've gone from middle ground to a background with the perspective in its place. Next slide. Okay, now I've started, this is Cortez. This was during the pandemic, and this is the Star Fish Market, and this is right off the dock because there wasn't that many places to go. I started a number of years ago, not just working on my painting and then putting it up and looking at it, but I started actually taking photographs about 3-4 times during the entire production. So I know that's very big when you do a demo. They'll say, well, what colors did you put first? And what did you decide? And whatever. So I thought, well, I'm going to include some of the things because I still have some of these pictures. And what was the most important? Well, the sky and the water were washed in. They're a little faded out, but you get the idea. And the big contrast was the actual boat and its shadow, and starting with that. And then the next one down was some of the work that I did to actually do that boat. Now where's the perspective? Well, that big boat in the front is leading your eye back, and that eye, where is the real focal point? Well, actually it's the pelicans toward the back and the boats toward the back. And the last one is more or less the way it looks in its finished product. Okay, next one, please. Okay, this is what I'm going to be doing on the day I do the demo. I'm going to start with about 20 minutes of going through a number of my paintings and showing you foreground, middle ground, background, some interesting points about perspective, how hard or how easy it really is if you choose to do that kind of a painting. In this one, it's 1 point perspective. It all goes back to 1 point. The sketch on the side, the schematic, is really what was there. I added the people to make them more interesting. This is St. Petersburg. This is after a rainstorm and the sun was starting to come out. I could see it as I looked down the pathway. And I'm going to be actually taking it, and lots of times people will say, okay, well, here's the sketch. Now let's go from here. I'm going to do the painting. I'm going to do the sketch for you. I'm going to show you my basic grid. I'm going to show you how easy it is to actually do that. A lot of people draw every blessed little thing, and then I don't know if they can tell what's going on when they start to paint it. Some do, some don't. I don't do that. I do blocks, large blocks, and then on this side over here where the umbrellas are with all of the buildings, I just take the lines and then I actually draw it in or just paint it in as I go along. So it's fresh, it's correct for me when I draw it, and then I paint it in. So that's what I'm going to be all about, and hopefully I'll get most of my painting done. I have a finished product though, so I can show you. So it'll be kind of like the middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end of that painting.
Tell me, Debbie, how you control, it looks like you actually focus in there on different planes. Some areas you focus, like the back was in focus, sometimes the front. What's your thought process there?
Depends on where the focal point is.
Yeah. So you kind of control what people see by the focal point, whether it's in detail or more clear.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about when you set it up. Are you you're drawing on the paper, and what kind of paper are you using?
Well, I do. This was a smaller painting that I did. I drew the whole thing right on the paper. I just draw very lightly, draw the grid lightly, and I'm set to go. If it's a really big painting, I still do I always do the grid to keep myself in place as to where everything is, because it is perspective. It's not like a flower and I can say, oh, I'll just throw another petal here, I'll add another leaf. I have to have some amount of believability in the actual perspective. But sometimes I will project it out. But basically what I'm drawing is just a couple of lines, and then I kind of gear them against the line I put just to kind of make sure I have them within the plans. And then the others I just draw freehand directly on the painting.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Do you teach?
I don't teach now. For some years, I taught at my community center here within the development I am at. I'm very happy just to be a free spirit, to go take a class with Ann or somebody, and to paint what I feel like. Now that the COVID is over, I'm on the road going to visit the grandkids a couple times a year. So it's just kind of nice to be retired and to be able to paint.
Well, let me ask you a question. It seems a lot of it boils down to perspective. Why should we care about perspective? I'm sure there's many people who just paint off the photograph. Why is it that we should pay attention to perspective? I think I know the answer, but tell us.
Well, I really enjoy the look of the depth of moving. I mean, it's a two-dimensional sheet of paper. I'm trying to create a three-dimensional world. And I'm not only trying to create it as 3 dimensions, I'm trying to also make you lead you way back into painting so that you really feel that sense of three-dimensionality.
Yeah, I noticed that. Can you hold up that painting there in the back? Is that original or is that a print?
Oh, no, that's an original.
Well, hold that closer to the camera for us, would you? It comes in when you see it that way. That's really cool. So you mentioned what I got out of that was paying attention to perspective, but also you got to pay attention to the shadows. They're part of the perspective, right?
Right.
And there's like a couple different vanishing points, aren't there? Or different.
Yes, and on some of the ones that I haven't shown that I will, and during the talk, there are various, and this one does. There's one vanishing point that's going back here, and then next to it in tandem is the vanishing point of people as they're going back toward the back of the actual painting in the samurai. So
Yeah.
yes, a lot of times, you know, it's not just 1 point perspective or 2 point perspective, you know, a box that becomes a house or whatever. There are many intricate things that go on in a painting. And I guess as I keep doing it, I keep adding more levels of that perspective that makes me happy.
Now the technique on the shadows, that looks like a wash on a wash, or how did you get that?
Oh, well, I put the color on. The first layers are just really pale. Then I put some of the darker colors on. I usually let it sit for about 5-10 minutes. And then because I want that softer look, I use a very small squirt bottle and I squirt it into its effect.
It flows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was wondering how you got that wavy look. It's not like you did it with a brush. It's like a real cool.
No,
effect.
well, you do put it on with a brush, but then you kind of take some of it off.
Yeah, yeah.
But it lightens it up. It gives that variation of light,
Yeah.
and you kind of get the effect of that you are going from the dark back area to the lightness that's up in the front.
Yeah. And what do you think of that painting?
What do I think of it?
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful.
Agree.
I'm troubled a little bit. Well, never mind. I think it's a wonderful painting. Awesome.
It is a bright painting. It was a very bright day when I actually took the picture, and I did struggle a little bit with deciding whether I wanted to stay as bright. In other paintings, I have simply taken, because I've got all this perspective going, I simply did a limited palette, and I've just gone to 2 or 3 colors, and you know, the cohesiveness of the painting. But these are all paintings as I went on my journey to where I am right now. So you're seeing a kind of a snapshot of me in all of my paintings.
That's cool.
Can I say what I like about it the most?
Okay.
It's backlit.
Yes.
And that's unusual. And to catch the eye of the judge, you have to be doing stuff that is unusual. There is an artist in Hamburg, New York, by the name of O'Neill.
Oh my God, O'Neill.
Yes. And
Catherine.
she's doing, if you look at her work right now, it's all backlit, and I absolutely love it.
Yes, I saw it at the show last year when Suncoast did their show, and it was there. And I was thrilled that she was from Buffalo. And I finally got my Art of Watercolor magazine in the mail 2 days ago. And she has an article, and she does even a step-by-step on that particular painting, which is just amazing.
And she's a doctor. She's also a medical doctor.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. Catherine
Wow.
O'Neill.
Well, that's really cool. A doctor, and the other thing is actually an artist from New York. That's unique, isn't it?
No,
I
they
don't
have
think so.
There's
Well,
another girl
whatever,
that's
that's
doing a
exciting.
demo for you, Linda Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
I met her in Buffalo, New York when I
Really?
lived. Oh yeah.
Well, Buffalo's a big place. That's the home of Charles Birchfield, and the suburban school district I worked in was the home of Charles Birchfield. He lived down the road from where I taught, and we did a number of grants, the school district, with the Birchfield Center, the Institute, and they had at the college they had a Birchfield Center, but they built one right where he used to paint. And so the center is there, you can go to it, and then you can take a walk down the ravine and down the whole area, and they have paintings, the little on the signs on the trees of the paintings he actually painted there and what it looked like
Wow.
when he painted it. It's very
Al
cool.
Abgott, my husband, was on the board at the Birchfield.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's a small
Yeah.
world.
Yes,
Small
and you know
world.
who else? Linda Lucas is doing a demonstration. I first met her through the Niagara Frontier Watercolor Society when I lived in Buffalo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, Linda. Huh. She's part of Suncoast too, isn't she?
Yep. Yes,
That's
she is.
fantastic. Well, I don't know if we're gonna have any time for Dawn or not. Let's just keep, no, okay, yeah. Okay, that was awesome, Debbie. Really appreciate that. That's a lot to look forward to. Okay, Don, tell us, a lot of us know you, few of us don't. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what in the world you're gonna do.
Okay, well, I originally started off in St. Augustine, grew up there, lived most of my life in Florida, except for a few times when I was in the military. Grew up in St. Augustine, went to the University of Florida, ended up graduating in '64, and then went into a Marine Corps commissioning program just in time for Vietnam to break out. So last year I was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam, got back out, decided that wasn't what.
Uh-oh.
Hey, can you unmute yourself? I accidentally muted you. Sorry.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Should I start over or?
No, yeah, just for a second. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just briefly, I grew up in St. Augustine, went to the University of Florida, graduated in '64, and went into the Marine Corps as an officer right at the time Vietnam broke out. So I spent a year in Vietnam, got out, came back to University of Florida for a master's degree, and then went to Auburn. Been in Panama City since '72. Panama City is very much like St. Augustine was 30, 40 years before that. And we've been here since then and love it. But I practiced full-time as a veterinarian for 20 years. All that time, I was also painting as a hobby. I started painting in watercolors probably 40 years ago. Not really seriously until about 25 years ago, and decided that I was going to go ahead and work part-time in veterinary practice. So I went to part-time, started getting more involved in my watercolors. About 20 years ago, I started teaching classes locally and still teaching those in my studio. But at the same time, back in the early 2000s, Judy Betts, who I've known for many years and was sort of a mentor, talked about doing journals and encourage everybody to do it. And I didn't really do it at first, but I remember what she said, how valuable her journals were to her. And she said, if my house caught on fire, I would immediately run in there and get my husband out. Then I would get my dogs out, and then I would get my journals out. And I have since that time come to appreciate what she said. They have become invaluable to me. I've taken thousands of photographs everywhere I've traveled. They all sort of run together. But when you do a plein air watercolor sketch in your journal, you remember everything that was going on at that time. It's ingrained in your memory forever. And, you know, there are things that I'll never forget about some of the episodes and experiences I had since I've been doing that. I've been doing the journaling since about 2006. Probably have over 500 watercolor sketches that I've done.
Wow.
But that's and what I'm going to do at the convention is basically show people how I do this. And I've got a small pack here. I'll show everybody that. It won't take but a second. But basically what I'm going to do at the convention is show people how to look at your scene, make a quick decision on where to place it on the paper, get it down, and get your sketch done in hopefully around 30 minutes. I've never spent more than an hour on one of these sketches. And I think probably the ones that I love the most are the ones that I probably did the quickest. And so it's that's what I'll do once I get through doing the demo of that. And of course, I'll have to use a photograph of one of my travels. So we'll do that, and then I'll take questions and answers from from the group there. So, but I've got
Yeah, show us something there. I see you have your animals there in the background, your patients.
Oh yes, that's my youngest one. I don't know if you can see her or not.
Yeah, I can see also the one over there on the floor.
She's making herself on
Yeah. Live.
But basically the book, I use one that's not very big. This is maybe 5 by 8. It's all 140 pound paper. Usually use Stillman and Byrne. They have high quality paper. It holds up to when you're working with this sort of wet. They do make them where they're bound, or they're spiral bound like this. This way you can fold them and work on them like this, so that it's easier to do. I think I like those better than the ones that are bound that you can't do. The thing that I have found in doing the journaling is that the thing that most people have trouble with is, and I've done a number of workshops where I've taken small groups out, and people just get totally frustrated trying to decide on what to paint. And literally you have to look for, one, you got to have good lighting, but you're looking for interesting shapes and lights and darks. And you can make an interesting journal painting as long as you have that, and it can be almost anything that you want. And that's the part that I try and teach. Now you can sit down here and try to use a lot of rules and all this, but basically I just decide on what I see in front of me, find out what's going to be my focal point. I decide on where I'm going to put that focal point on my paper, and then I do it, as I tell people, a quick 1 minute, maximum 2 minute sketch to get it on the paper. Most people agonize, get it in the wrong spot, erase 3 or 4 times, start over again, and waste more time trying to decide on where to put things on the paper. And I think if they learn nothing other than where to put it on the paper and how to do it quickly, that's the gist of how you become successful in doing this. So what I use here is just a single one strap, throw it over one shoulder. Everything I have goes in here. There's a small travel palette, a little water dish. You have a place here where a little thing on the side where you can put a small plastic water bottle in. I have seen people who have carry big, huge backpacks, much bigger. And I've seen some people like Brenda Swenson would carry hers in a small little handbag, and everything in something probably 1/4 the size of this. So, you can use whatever you want. To me, this is comfortable, but I just enjoy when I'm out traveling. I will walk and walk and walk and cover miles and see something, got to paint it right there. And I've been in climates that were sweltering hot, in places where I was freezing to death, and people look at me like, what are you doing here? But it's almost become an obsession to record all these places that I've seen and was impressed.
Do you sit at a table, or where do you place your painting while you're painting? Where do you sit?
Anywhere you can. I have sat out in the middle of a field, down in the grass. I have sitting on the curb of a busy street with my feet out in the gutter, painting down.
You hold it on your lap? You hold it on your lap?
Yeah, I use my lap. I've stood on the sidewalk using a windowsill along a building to put stuff in. So you have to improvise. You can't, if you're walking around and traveling, it's not like you can drive there with your car, get out and do a plein air painting. It's not the same thing. You've got to be able to keep it very minimal, move around, work quickly, especially if you're traveling with a group. You don't have but a short period of time. Sometimes I have done a quick sketch, just maybe put a few colors in there, come back and do it later and finish it up. Sometimes I'll do the watercolor first and then come back in and later when I get back, because I didn't have time to finish it, even 15, 20 minutes, and then do the pen and ink on there to do some accentuation on it. So
Now you're going to feature in your demos some subject matter from Iceland. What's the plan for Iceland?
The plan for Iceland is I'm leaving next Sunday. I was supposed to leave in June on another one to Iceland, and they canceled the trip a week before I was supposed to leave, and a week after I was supposed to leave, they went bankrupt. So I was back to square one and set up another trip, and leaving next Sunday, and I think this one will come off okay. I'm waiting to get this trip, finish this trip, and I have been working on a book, which about 90% finished, and I'm going to include the last part of it with Iceland. And it's not so much a how-to book, but more of a inspiration book to encourage people to just take their sketchbook with them and do this whenever they travel. Hopefully
Big publish, right?
Yeah, it will be, hopefully it'll be out later this year.
Oh, but not in time for the convention?
No, well, no, I don't think that. It won't maybe next year.
Oh, okay.
It should be ready this fall, but not that soon.
Yeah. So what's different about Iceland? All I can picture is glaciers and snow and ice.
Well, I haven't been there. It's one of my bucket lists. But what's interesting from what I know about it is that Greenland, of course, everybody thinks is green, and Iceland, everybody thinks it's all ice.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the other way around. Iceland has a lot more greenery, and Greenland is not a whole lot there. So I'll find out.
Yeah. Now, Anna mentioned earlier about somebody she knew that did, what was it, the glaciers? Who was that?
Years ago, here in Florida, I became aware of a girl by the name of Jean Dobie. And Jean Dobie wrote the quintessential book on color called Making Color Sing. And one of the last times I saw her, she had just gotten off a cruise to Iceland and was painting icebergs.
Huh. Yeah, I just pulled that up. I pulled it up real quick. So you knew her. I was looking to see if there are any glaciers around here. Man, that's amazing. Now, how do you know her?
Jean Dobie was a member of Florida Watercolor for many years because there we go. There you go. Because she lived down in the Keys.
Wow. Look at
and
that.
she may still be a member. If she's still alive, she may still be a member because she could be grandfathered in. I believe she now lives in Pennsylvania.
Well, Don, you're going to paint some paintings like this then.
We'll see what I find.
I was wondering, when she mentioned glacier, I was thinking, how would you paint a glacier? But when you look at it, look at all the beautiful colors, the cold colors you can put in there. That's pretty amazing. And then offset with those beautiful boats. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you bring back. We'll have to have a special Zoom just to highlight your book and all of those paintings you paint.
I'll let you know whenever it does get published. I'm not sure how long it's going to take them. I've got 90% of it done. I'm just waiting for the final Iceland episode.
Put in, yeah. Now you use, if I remember correctly, you paint it, all the values, and you come back in with the detail with a pen, right? A black pen?
Yeah, I just use a pen just minimally. It's just enough to bring the accent out of certain parts of it. A lot of people who do this type of journaling do a very detailed pen and ink drawing first and then paint within the lines.
Yeah.
I go beyond the lines, and I have a lot of these sketches that you wouldn't really even know what it was until I put a few ink marks in there.
Oh,
And those have sometimes been the most interesting ones.
oh. Do you have a painting handy by chance? Your sketchbook? You could show us real quick?
Yeah.
A little show and tell?
Yeah, let me.
I thought maybe you might have one.
I got about 8 or 10 of them. This is one right here that's that was in Belém, Brazil.
That's
and,
beautiful.
Down away from the hotel, and
How long did it take you to paint that one?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, all or 30 minutes. Wow.
Well,
Well,
it's basically the hardest part for most people is to decide on where to put the drawing, and it takes time. This is some of them here from this was in Istanbul.
mhm.
That was a mosque, and the one there that's showing on the left of the screen actually is the foot washing station outside the mosque.
Oh, that's cool.
And like I said, you can make a painting out of almost anything, but that's what that was. And this was the mosque that it was nearby. And of course, in Istanbul, there's a lot of mosques.
Ann or Deb, have you ever done a sketchbook?
I have a sketchbook that I
Do you?
use.
Yeah.
Mostly to kind of
I
just
tell you
work out
what,
the
I
ideas.
just, I'm looking forward to seeing the demo. I just want to find out how you can do that in 30 minutes. That's all I want to know. And that'll be fun. It'll be very enjoyable. Hey, so anybody have anything they want to add? We're unfortunately coming down to the end, and I hate this. It's kind of like you ever, buy a smoothie and you drink it, and that last sip, you hear that sound. It's like, oh no, it's at the end. Well, we're there. Anyway, we've had really a lot of fun. Do anybody have any questions or comments or insult? I like the insults, by the way. Closing comments is something that people should know. Well, with that said, I want to thank all of you for coming. You had something, Debbie?
Keep painting. The more you paint,
Yeah.
the better you get.
Now we're talking.
You always find something that you can work on, that you want to do something with. And my God, there's so many different types of painting. I look at works in a gallery or a show, and I think, gee, I've never decided to do that, but that's the next thing I'm going to tackle, or I'm going to try.
And do you have a painting handy that we can see real quick? Do you have a painting? Let's put you on the spot. I don't mean to do that.
Well, I have.
Of course, you can walk us around your house,
Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there we go.
I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, we get to see some paintings.
I'm finishing those. I'm finishing those. That's my job right now. Finish a lot of paintings. I want to say one thing. Yeah, I'm only challenged. I think everybody's been very, very informative, but I've reached a point that I'm not interested in painting anything anymore unless I don't think I can do it.
Oh,
Oh, a challenge.
Unless it's challenging, I'm not interested.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, you have no idea, but
That's a good
you know,
point.
when you do it, it's just like, it's like diamonds. You think, oh my
Mhm.
God, I actually did that. I didn't think
I
I
like
could.
that. A
Yeah.
challenge. Hey, Don, someone asked if you kept your books from vet school.
My books.
Yeah, from vet school, and is it a source of paintings?
Oh, no, they're all outdated by now.
Yeah.
I might still have my physiology textbook. Or
Yeah,
something.
well, there you go. There you go. Well, I
Yeah.
want to tell you, this was a real treat for all of us. And we've got a bunch of comments coming in, thanking you and all of that. And thank you for all of you who put in your questions. We had 70 some people here today and tuning in to some fun things, fun facts. I'm thinking about next year calling the ConFab Fun Facts. I don't know, something different. But confabs are just to get together. And I don't mind if any of you are on here and you fall asleep. That means it's relaxing. And I'm sure there's a couple people took a little nap. That means it's relaxing. We're just talking. And I want to thank all of you. And grateful for you spending your time. Great insight and looking forward to your demonstration. Deborah, I got to know you a little better today, especially like the uniqueness of highlighting and focusing on perspective. That makes a difference, a uniqueness to your painting. And Don, the ability to find something out of I think you're right. You have a whole space, you're looking out and you see like millions and millions of objects and things. How do you narrow it down and find something interesting to paint? And I'm looking forward to seeing your book. Too bad your books aren't going to be there in September, but you know, that's all right. And look forward to seeing you. I know all of us are. So with all that said and done, thank you. And we're very grateful for your time.
Thank you, Ron.
Wait, we
Yeah,
got four more questions. That's it, I guess. Let me see if I missed anything. Okay, I guess. Yes, we're for all of you, lots of accolades to everybody. And yes, this is recorded. It will be available for you to view. Just go to our website, look under events. Under events, look under ConFab. Find this event, and there'll be a little link that says view. You click the link, and it'll connect you to the YouTube channel. Or at any time, you can see all of our videos on Florida Watercolor Society's YouTube channel. There's a couple hundred videos on there, and this one will be on there. So signing off, everybody give me a hi or bye. There we go. That's it. Have a good day.
You too.